Welcome to the world of Street Fighter 3. Prepare for battle.
All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Slovenly Gamer Podcast. I am your host, Milton, and on this week's show, the man is finally here. This dude is like, I think he's like the Dumbledore of the Nintendo University. I think that's the appropriate, moniker to give him. Now, as you guys know, before, episode 67, I kind of freestyled about my thoughts on the new Nintendo Switch. Surprisingly, actually, a lot of people agreed with me. They saw I was coming from one person who actually paid homage to on the show, and I gave him a shout out. And I was like, "Hey, you know what? This is the only person that I know He's the biggest Nintendo brain that I know." And I was just like, if he has a differing opinion, I'm gonna sincerely listen to it because the man knows what he's talking about, and he's actually here to discuss that topic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And this guy was my first guest, actually, so it's an honor to have you back for a second time, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shareef Jackson. Shareef, welcome back. How are you, man?
What's up, man? I'm doing good. I kind of halfway appreciate the Dumbledore since he gets like killed. 20-year-old spoiler alert for Harry Potter.
Yeah, right.
But he does die. So I don't know if that means that you're gonna sum me so bad that I'm just gonna fall out. I don't know. But,
no. It's just, you know what? Dumbledore without the dying. Let's just remove the dying part.
Dumbledore without the dying.
Yeah, without the dying. Let's just forget that part. So it's been a while since we've last chatted, man. You've been doing so much. You're one of those like seriously and sincerely inspiring human beings. You're doing science
thanks,
looks
man.
good. Now you're doing math looks good. You were big part of the STEM program. What have you been up to generally, and then what have you been up to with all your different programs that you're doing?
Oh man, I mean, generally I've been doing great. I mean, I made a huge decision at the end of last year to leave, after 15 years of, being in corporate America, to leave and start my own business. So that's really the big news that has been since I was last on the show. And because of that, my quality of life has just improved tremendously. I wake up more excited to, attack things, and, it's just been really good for me. And I really enjoyed sort of, being my own boss and like really doing the kind of work that I feel like I excel at, which is tutoring in math and physics. It's just been a really exciting couple months. It's definitely hurting the pocket a little bit because that nice comfy corporate check is no longer there. But I also know that, if I keep trending the way I am, that, I could potentially replicate the money that I was making by the end of the year.
Right.
So I'm definitely excited. Like, I'm definitely budgeting a lot harder. It means I can't buy every game that comes out or do that kind of stuff that I used to be able to do.
Right.
But that's how most people are.
Man, that's a big step. Like what I mean, because I think that's for most people, not everyone, to be honest, because some people actually just enjoy working and having a regular 9 to 5. But I think that's a dream, even something that I dream about, and even that's something that I'm striving towards. But what made you push that button? What was the final thing that you were like, you know what, I'm doing this?
I think the final thing was that so I previously worked in the data analysis and engineering fields. So I would usually be housed in like the IT department of a company, and like I'd be the one that'd be doing a lot of the programming and database work and that kind of stuff. And traditionally those fields, unless you're at a really good company, those fields tend to be utilized as sort of a service where you just kind of dump work on and just throw it over. And there's not really a partnership. So that can lead you to feel really undervalued. I mean, like you put in all this work, like you work extra hours, like you stay up late, trying to write these like queries for databases and stuff. And then you give your work and then it's just like, hey, thanks. You know?
Yeah. It's just like, yeah, dude, that was like 2,000 hours of my life. Like, what do you mean just thanks? That's it?
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of had this small feeling of, being undervalued. And I think it came to a head where at my last job, I felt that even more. And I was on a contract, and that contract ended early. And I knew that I wanted to do full-time tutoring eventually because I've been doing it part-time for about 10 years.
Right.
But I just moved to Milwaukee 4 years ago, so I had to like organically grow my own base because like I had a pretty solid base in Philly and in New York where I used to live, but obviously I couldn't take that with me. So once I built that up to a level where I felt like I could do that on a full-time basis, that kind of nicely aligned right with the time where I was getting kind of really, disillusioned with feeling undervalued. And I felt more passionate about the few tutoring sessions I had a week as opposed to the, 50, 55 hours that I was putting in at this really tough job. So I was like, I'm 36, I want to be doing something that makes me happy every day. I want to be doing something that I wake up and I'm excited to do. And I just didn't feel that about my full-time job. So I said, hey.
Wait, okay. So before we start talking about this Nintendo stuff,
Yeah.
So you actually, do you have a degree in like physics or anything like that?
Yeah. So I have an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering, which obviously is like very heavily physics-based.
Right.
And a master's degree in engineering management, which is also math and physics-based. So
you see,
Yeah.
This is why I told you guys, when I tweeted it out, if Star Trek does a new show, Shareef Jackson should be the science officer. I'm telling you guys. Like,
I would love it.
Like, he doesn't even need to, like, all those actors who basically have to study and would say things that are incorrectly. Like, I mean, that's just incorrect and doesn't even make any sense. Shareef, you know what? They would probably hate Shareef because Shareef is a dude that he'll read the script and he'll be like, this makes no sense, right? This is scientifically impossible, right?
Damn right. I would absolutely be hated.
Yeah, right. Like, that I have like I've studied this. Like, like the real thing is much better. You'll be like, like the acting on Neil deGrasse Tyson. You'll be like, listen, the real stuff is so much better. Just let me put some real math in here. Like, you guys will love it, and the people will learn. So that's actually really, really awesome, man. I didn't know that. So you learn something new every day. That's really great. Now let's jump straight ahead. Bad segues, just like the homie Khalif. What's up, Khalif? Bad segues. I love you.
He is a terrible segue person, and
Yeah,
you should
right?
let him know all the time.
Let's jump forward a little bit. Now, did the episode a couple weeks ago, like I was talking about at the top of the show. I'm not gonna lie. Let me give my point of view first.
Sure.
When I first heard, like, I didn't even really have any idea about Nintendo Switch. I really, it wasn't really on my radar necessarily. I heard I saw everyone tweeting about it, everyone talking about it. I was like, okay, let me check out the presentation. So I'll go on and look at the entire, like, I think it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
I go in and look at the entire presentation. I had no preconceived notions or any expectations going in. Just because I didn't know. I was just like, let me just see what they're doing now. When they were done, I was completely underwhelmed. I was just like, okay, like, graphically, I wasn't interested. There was like maybe like 2 games, of course, like the Mario game, the Zelda, and then obviously the classics, like, the Disgaea series, Dragon Quest, so on and so forth. I was just like, okay, then the Joy-Cons look a little bit weird. I thought that was a little weird. It just didn't necessarily speak to me, and I felt like I was looking at another Wii. I basically said as much. You then were like, Milton, you bugging. You basically said, yo, what's up? Thank you for the shout out. I love what you do, but you bugging, son. So, Mr. Jackson, tell me why I'm bugging when I say that Nintendo is just... It's Nintendo continually makes disposable systems. That's exactly what I said verbatim at one point.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. So I'll repurpose. So I didn't mean you were bugging like your opinion isn't valid, right? So everybody has an opinion, and everybody's not going to like a Nintendo system, just like everybody's not going to like a PlayStation. Everybody's not going to like
Precisely.
an Xbox.
Precisely.
So there's no like right or wrong way. So I want to say that up front is I don't think like everyone should buy a Nintendo Switch, or I don't think like everyone should buy this game or anything like that. Really,
Right.
But I do think that there are some, somewhat objective points that can be made, and some people might agree or disagree with whether that's important to them. But there are some, sort of facts out there that I feel like, can help inform somebody's like decision.
Right.
Right. So the first thing that I think is out there is, I don't think anyone should ever pre-order a system.
Yes, that is true.
Unless a few things. One is you're willing to pay what I call the early adopter tax. Okay. Meaning you're willing to deal with an operating system that might need to be patched several times.
Yes.
And you are willing to deal with a gaming drought of several months.
Right.
Because every system that's ever came out, and this is ones that have great libraries, the PS2, the 360, even back to the 16-bit, 8-bit days, like
yes.
They come out, they might have one or two blockbusters, and then you're pretty much waiting.
For like a year back then. It was like almost a year. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think anyone should pre-order the Switch unless one, you're willing to deal with that, and you are a huge Zelda fan. As much as I love Nintendo products, I wouldn't have pre-ordered this thing if Zelda wasn't there day one, because that's really the only launch game that I'd be willing to deal with all the other early adopter stuff with the operating system and waiting for them to get other stuff out there.
Right.
Like Zelda is, one of my favorite franchises of all time, up there with Mass Effect and Street Fighter and like those kind of games.
Right.
So during the whole presentation, I was also a little bit underwhelmed. Not that I didn't think that the system was good, but I was watching it like, all right, are they going to show me something that makes me want to actually buy this on day one? Because I've never bought a system day one ever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was my same mindset as well too. So good to know. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get a Wii day one. I didn't get a Wii U day one. I didn't get a PS3, PS4 on a day one. Right. So I own a PS4. I own a PC.
Okay.
I also owned a Wii U and a 3DS, but I traded that in toward the Switch pre-order.
Okay.
So I don't think people should pre-order this thing unless those two things are sort of intact. But I do think a lot of people were judging the press conference by if it would get them excited enough to pre-order. And I think that's a bit of a tricky situation because, like, I don't think, for like example, when the PS4 launched, and I love my PS4, but when it launched with mostly ports of existing PS3 games,
PS3 titles, people forget
and
that.
they had and like their sort of quote unquote big game was like Knack,
whatever happened to that thing? Like,
well, I mean, they said that they want to continue with the series.
Oh my gosh, no!
But the first one was garbage.
Yeah,
it was like to the point where most people were playing like Resogun, right? Which
my gosh, yeah,
which like was a good game, but it was a small indie game that I don't think was intended to be like
on
the
such
driving
a big platform,
force behind that game. So most people were, like they pre-ordered like the system, they were super excited. And then, that was sort of their game. Just like with the 360, everybody was playing Geometry Wars.
Right.
Which was another small indie game because like those sort of large, really big kind of, series defining experiences like on Microsoft's side, like a Gears and a Halo. And like on the Sony side, like a Uncharted or like a Last of Us or a Metal Gear. Those games take a long time to make.
Yeah, they do.
And developers need some familial. I always mispronounce
familiarity.
Yes, that word.
Okay.
I always mispronounce it, but they need to be familiar enough with with the code and the operating system, right, and like all that stuff. So I don't necessarily think it's fair to judge whether the Nintendo Switch will be a successful console by the fact that the launch lineup is very minimal, because, even though other systems had a larger launch lineup, I don't necessarily think they were strong launch lineups. I don't think in general systems launch with strong launch lineups.
That's true. That's true.
To me, at least.
No. There is some, there is truth to that, but I feel like, okay, so now you have to look at, I'm putting it within the context of lineage. Nintendo's been around forever. They've been doing this. They're basically quote unquote the masters at this, or should be at this point. Then I'm looking at the context of all their systems that they've come out with, especially when I used to be at GameStop years ago, and I felt like it was every couple months, it was like a new 3DS, and I said, seriously, this, this,
There's been a lot of revisions.
Yeah, and I got from the parents, and I would get this from the parents. Now, when it came to the Wii, people would be like, oh, I got this because there was 3 or 4 games that I thought would look really cool. It's a fun party game. We all can kind of play together. But then after that, it was nothing else for me to do with the system. It just kind of basically sat there, became a paperweight. Even people who had children, because I know sometimes people leave out that actual fact, which is a very important piece of information, that sometimes it might be different depending on, younger players in the house and so on. But I feel like I said in the show, that kids are, it's sad in many ways. Kids are growing up so fast that a system like the Wii does not have the same amount of longevity, because when a kid is going to go to school, their friends are going to be like, oh, what are you playing? I'm playing COD. If you look at most of the COD players, they're young. They're it's crazy, but they're 9, 10, 11 years old, So
because they got the reflexes, man.
Exactly. We're old. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So it's it's a lot of these kids that are playing the shooters, buying up the shooters and things like that. And I just feel like we have to look at all of that and put that into the equation as well. And you're like, well, this is why it's failing, because, and again, I get that information from parents. Hey man, I got this, my kids said they really like this, but they played Mario once or twice, or they play Mario with their friends, and then they only play Call of Duty, or they only play their PS4 or their Xbox. And that was the information I got. So when I looked at the presentation, I felt like, okay, this is going to be just like the Wii within the context of that. Okay, it's going to be really cool. There's going to be a couple titles people are going to get excited about, but it's not going to be anything that's going to make people want to go back to the system. And that was basically my point. I felt like at this stage in the game, Nintendo should be making games and designing a system that, okay, you don't have to necessarily compete in that same way, because like Andrew said, shout out to the homie Andrew Lyons, he said he was just you know what, he's Nintendo knows how to play their lane, because he actually had a hands-on thing with it, and he said it was great.
Yeah.
And he was just that's the thing about Nintendo, man. He's they know how to stay in their lane. And I'm that's true, but you have to understand how the market is evolving. And I feel like for some reason, Nintendo is not necessarily evolving fast enough with the market. It's they keep making this system, and I feel like in a month and a half after it comes out, I'm gonna see a Switch 2. Nintendo Switch 2.0, and then it's gonna have a bunch of other accessories to go with it, and that's another thing I feel with with Nintendo is just it's always heavily accessory based, kind of like with the Wii. But when you're looking at games, you're okay, I could play Paper Mario. There was the other couple like Kingdom Hearts and Harvest Moon and all those classics JRPG style games. But then again, those are still just the base games. And when you're done with that in about a month or so, there's nothing else for you to kind of go back to the system to say, you know what, this system has a long life. For example, for PlayStation, you can feel you know what, there's really good legacy games I kind of want to go back to. Yes, you can download, but I'm talking about in terms of the power of the system, the graphics, internet usage, multiplayer, and all these different kind of things. I'm just not seeing Nintendo do that. Now, from your perspective, why is it like what about Nintendo? What about Nintendo in their marketing? What about Nintendo? What is it from your perspective of a super fan that you think Nintendo just cannot get it right after all these years? Like they just can't seem to catch up fast enough with anything else.
Okay. Wow. I'm not sure what you just dumped a lot of information.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'm like trying to get it through my brain waves going on right here. Okay. So the first thing I want to say is I disagree that Nintendo has not gotten it right all these years, in general, because I do agree with you that a lot of people did get their Wiis and did not use them for, years upon years upon end. But I think that was because Nintendo advertised and sold that to a demographic that were comfortable with playing 1 game, 2 games, 3 games a year. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because the gaming audience is not only people that, want to have every kind of like the newest releases or like want to have a diversity of like games. What Nintendo found with the Wii is that there were people that were willing to spend $250 to play Wii Sports and be good. You know what I'm saying?
True.
And I think that's a positive for the industry because that brought in people that, wouldn't necessarily be willing to spend the additional money for an Xbox or a PlayStation, because they don't value the graphic fidelity or the increased online as much as someone like a you or that me does, right?
Right.
So I think that the fact that the Wii sold like gangbusters and then dropped off, I don't necessarily think that's a negative. Now, it is something that you can't repeat, and right. I think that
it's one and done, man.
Yeah, so I think that like Nintendo had, well, obviously they had a financial failure with the Wii U, but if you think about it, in terms of home consoles, that was their first console that was a financial failure. I mean, the GameCube made a lot of profit.
True.
Yeah. All their portable systems obviously did,
crushed,
counting the Virtual Boy or whatever. The N64 turned a profit as well. The Wii, so like gangbusters. So the Wii U was their first stumbling block. And I think it was their stumbling block because, number one, they didn't really have a clear objective as to what the system was. They kind of just put all these ideas and said, you guys figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they also had this, I think they were a little too reactionary to people that were criticizing the Wii for not having enough third-party support. So instead of them thinking and saying, we need the right third-party support that works for our system, they said, hey, we're going to get ports of Mass Effect 3 and Call of Duty and Madden and we're going to show them because we're going to have all these things. So they got these really unoptimized, badly done ports. And then all those third parties predictably saw that they didn't sell.
Yes.
And they left, so like Nintendo I feel like they were a little too reactionary to some of the criticism they got on the Wii. Plus they pushed out a system that I don't think they thought clearly about exactly how to market it and exactly, what would make someone spend the money for it. Because I heard a lot of people say like, man, I would love to play Splatoon or Mario Maker, but not $350 worth
exactly
to play it, So like their hardware and their marketing really knocked them back and prevented people from playing a lot of good software. So that's why I kind of disagree with the fact that Nintendo continually doesn't get it wrong, because to me, they've continually got it right until the Wii U. And like now, like they're trying to pick their faces up the ground because all their investors are pissed off. They were like losing money quarter after quarter for the first time in like decades. So yes. So like I don't agree that they continually get it wrong. In general. Now, obviously, if you're someone that does not like Nintendo software and
Khalif,
that,
what's up?
yeah, and like everybody's not gonna like it. Everybody doesn't like like Nintendo, Zelda, Metroid, and like that kind of stuff. If you don't like those franchises, like you're not gonna like any console that Nintendo puts out because those are always gonna be their linchpins, right? It would be like saying like, hey, like I hate like a Disney, like the majority of Disney characters and expect to like Disney, like they're always going to use those as their linchpins. But I do think that one thing that Nintendo does in terms of evolving with the market, as you said, is I don't think they've ever done that. I think that back when they first started, they've always done something different from what the trends are, back from when the first NES even came out, because, at that time in 85, like everybody thought games were a fad, and that you couldn't really sell a console to the American market, right? After the video game crash of the early 80s with like Atari and stuff. So like they kind of,
it was ET, right? Was it
oh
ET?
God, yes.
Yeah.
Well, ET was kind of the popular example that they just printed up so like more copies than they actually sold Atari systems.
Right.
So they ended up having to bury them in New Mexico in landfill.
That's real, people. That's actually real. There's a documentary about it. You should check it out.
And I don't know if it's still only on the Xbox store, but I know that there was a documentary on like how they actually went to that like a landfill and actually dug up copies of
It's on Netflix actually as well too.
Oh, it's on Netflix now.
Yeah,
okay, yeah. So like they, every console that they released, they always did something different. So they've never evolved with the market. They've always made their own decision. And I think because at that time they were more invested in, in being the most, powerful console in terms of specs with the Super Nintendo and the N64, that people, I think, kind of forget the fact that, the only time they ever made a reactionary move to evolve to the market was with the Wii U, when they tried to say, we got to get all these ports of these games that like everybody else is like.
Retrospectively, I definitely agree with you. Like when like putting it into context, thinking about 64, Nintendo, which was like my first love, and like all the like even Game Boy. You're right. Like they were super successful. So you're definitely right about that. I was only kind of unfairly starting it from the context of like the Wii and like Wii U and things like that. So you're definitely right about that.
So like I think that at the point that Nintendo is now, I think that they're in a really interesting place because I think with with the Wii they discovered a new audience, but that audience, as I said, they're good with Wii Sports and that's it. So that's not an audience you can rely on to buy successive consoles.
Right. They'll buy like one or two games and that's it, and then they're done.
Yeah. And you saw that as a GameStop employee, right? Yeah. I remember going to GameStop. They'd have millions of Wii's used.
Exactly. You remember,
just like the whole ceiling of the store, like that upper shelf.
Yeah.
All Wii's.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So they found success, but it was very limited.
Right.
With the Wii U, I feel like they made the mistake with marketing, and with, trying to appeal to things that don't necessarily work on their system. Because like they got to realize like, hey, we don't have the same graphical like fidelity, so we can't try to compete with these exact same games.
True.
So the thing I like about the Switch is that I think they fixed the marketing problem, because they've said exactly what this thing is, what it's going to do, and what the strengths are. Now, if I'm not saying everybody's going to agree that makes them want to buy it, but at the very least, I think that they've been clear for the first time since the Wii of exactly what this is and what the benefits are. I also think that they are focusing on third party, but not on the same third-party games that Xbox and PlayStation has. Right. So like they're getting support from Ubisoft, but they're not trying to get like For Honor and Watch Dogs 2, and Wildlands, right? They are trying to get specific things that are more focused on art direction and Loki and Loki and I don't know what's wrong with me today, and local multiplayer, and more of a stylized look, because that works better on a console that doesn't have the same graphical like fidelity as like the other ones. So I feel like, you know, they are putting themselves in the best possible place after the Wii U failure to be able to succeed. Early reports have said, you know, I'm shocked that I haven't heard anyone in the mainstream press really complain about how the hardware looks, because everybody always complained that the Wii and the Wii U had this kind of plastic Fisher Price kind of look, and I agree with them because it did. You know, it just did not look visually impressive, right? Especially if it was like below like your slick looking like a TV, AV thing, and
this
like
big plastic box, like a tissue box, kind of like the GameCube, the tissue box with the handle. Exactly. So like I was shocked that, you know, I've really heard people really complain about that. So I'm like, wow, like Nintendo must have really done a good job with the actual kind of look of this thing. So I think that they've gotten over the hump of making something that's visually appealing. And at least from the first year, I don't feel like they're being reactionary and just trying to get ports of older games. Like they're trying to deliver some newer experiences that will be beneficial on the console. Right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You know, so I think with those few things, I think that they've put themselves in a great position. Well, I think, let me say this. I think they put themselves in the best possible position after having such a disastrous last couple years to turn the company around. You know, whether it works or not, I don't know. You know, but like I know that I've heard general positivity about Nintendo in terms of console for the first time since like the debut of the Wii, basically.
Wow.
You know, which is pretty, you know, that was like 2005, 2004, you know?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, especially
so it's been a minute.
Yeah, my audience is like, you know, mainly FGC, and my stream was like a light with like positive reactions.
Yeah.
When they saw it.
I was shocked because I you know, I'm not, you know, this is like the first time I think since social media has been a huge thing that I've seen people that aren't like, you know, like Nintendo fan sites or like a whatever, like complimentary about a home console from Nintendo. So it's been pretty shocking, really.
Now, you said a couple of things I want to. So the first thing you said, okay, the system looks a little bit better. I kind of agree with that. I can see that. When I saw it, I didn't think that it was actually a hideous piece of plastic. So that I kind of agree with. But here's my thing. Why? I mean, I'm asking you like you work for Nintendo, but like just from your point of view, like why is it that they cannot get the visuals of the games? Like, do you think that's purposefully done? Because even though they say it's like it's going to be what 1080 or something like that, when I was looking at some of those games, I was just like, that is not 1080. I'm like, there's no way. It was like sus. And I understand early builds and you're trying to do stuff or, you know, your presentations and things like that. But I feel like I feel you got to be very, very, very careful with saying, especially a Nintendo product, saying that, oh yeah, it's going to be 1080. Then I'm looking at the games and I'm like, yo, dude, this looks like Wii / like, I don't know, like N64 kind of. I was just kind of like, like some of those graphics look a little blocky to me. Like, do you think it's a cause? It's a price saving thing that they're not kind of like basically trying to say, hey, you know, we can do like true full HD, you know, the system is powerful enough to do this. You know, obviously they don't need to do the 4K thing. They don't need to like jump that far ahead. But I'm talking about like truly honest, reliable HD. Like how come? Like I feel like we haven't gotten that in so long from Nintendo, and I feel like at this point we should have that. I saw when I went back after I did the episode, they said that it's going to be like 1080 or something like that. But again, when I went back and looked at the presentation again, I was just like, I don't really know, because I'm looking at some of these videos and I'm like, that does not look like HD rendering, especially when I have a PS4 sitting in my house. and I'm seeing like 1080 and stuff like that, I feel like that's kind of suspect to actually say that.
Right.
So that's the first one. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely purposeful. I think I think when the Wii came out and Nintendo was reviewing how the GameCube did, and that was the last machine that they made, which was actually technically more powerful than the PlayStation. Than
the PS2, right?
Yeah, in terms of the raw specs,
right.
Like Resident Evil 4 and all that kind of stuff. So I think when they reviewed how they did, and even though they turned a profit, they had less of a profit than they did on the N64. I think they just realized like, hey, like this is going to keep going down, and we want to spend our R&D dollars on something different. So I think that they said, hey, we're going to spend our R&D on different ways to play, as opposed to playing the same games that look better.
Right.
So I think that as I said before, like they've never really evolved with the market. They kind of have always created their own thing. So I think that this is another example of that. Is like they like said, hey, we're gonna with the Wii, they were like, hey, we're gonna invest our like R&D into a new form of like controller and motion control and like make that work. With the Wii U, I said, hey, we're going to invest the like R&D into asynchronous gameplay with the gamepad and like all that kind of stuff. And with the Switch, I said, hey, instead of investing our R&D into making the fastest thing possible, we're going to make something that can run the same games on the go.
Right.
So I think it's definitely purposeful, and I think that it's Nintendo trying to make their own niche. I personally think that if they came out with a system that was technologically comparable to the PS3 and the Xbox, I think it would be a detriment to them because they still wouldn't get those games.
Really?
Like they still wouldn't get the same games. And the reason I think so is because developing games is really expensive.
Yes.
And these companies, they can barely get a game out for the Xbox and the PS4 at the same time. And when they do, they're glitchy, or there's all this controversy. Oh, this runs at 900p on, the Xbox and like whatever. I think if you ask these developers who are already complaining, so the market is already saying that a $60 game does not do enough to recoup a company for developing a game. That's why there's all these microtransactions and season passes and like all that stuff, because they honestly need that to make money, right? So I think if you ask these same developers to develop a whole nother game for a console that is proven that the Nintendo franchises are the ones that sell better than anything else, I don't think that they would do it. And if they did do it, I think that it would be a lesser version that would not have the same kind of care and attention, and I think it would undersell. So I think that like Nintendo has kind of made that decision, like, hey, like we can't that doesn't make business sense for us to try to chase the power thing,
Okay, that's fair. Yeah,
because that's not where our strength is, and we know that we have 15 years of data that says that the highest selling systems, that the highest selling games on Nintendo systems, even when the systems were technologically advanced, like the Super Nintendo and the N64, that the highest selling games are the Nintendo games.
True.
Right.
True.
So on the other systems, third parties don't really have that competition in there. I mean, they definitely have. Obviously, there's a few first party or like a second party titles that are huge, but those systems are really primarily driven by third party content.
That's true. So, for Nintendo, they're doing, obviously, a part of the presentation I saw, they're doing a lot of third-party stuff. They want to do a couple games look interesting. But I was going to ask you, so aside from Zelda, for me, Street Fighter looked interesting. I also found it interesting that they also want to hop into the the whole esports. They want to hop into the esports bandwagon with Ultra Street Fighter and all that stuff. I don't know about that one, but whatever. Like it sounds exciting. And when I say that, it's not hate to Nintendo or anything like that. I just feel like the FGC, like, we can only take so much. Like, Street Fighter has been plagued with issues. This whole esports thing has been kind of throwing us for a loop. At first, it was like super exciting, but then the more people kind of understand, people in the FGC kind of understand business and how business actually works. Because I love my FGC community, but like some of these people need to stop playing video games and read a book from time to time because they're gonna, because they really don't understand how business works. When you try to explain it to them, like the detriments of having esports and big business and big money kind of involved in your community, like they don't get it. And I'm like, no, this is like a real thing. This happens every single day, and you have to understand that. And that is like a valuable and viable aspect to look at as well too. But anyway, aside from Zelda, for me, Street Fighter, what other games? Obviously, please don't say Mario. Mario, what is it? Destiny? What is it called?
Mario Odyssey.
Odyssey. Hit me, Destiny, you see? Mario Odyssey, I saw that and I was just like, okay, that did look kind of interesting to me. I was just like, you know what? I would really actually like to play that because I haven't played a Mario game in a really, really long time. Aside from those titles and obviously the Mario titles, what other titles did you see or are you kind of like looking forward to in the system?
Okay, so like, do you mean like in the launch window or like just anything that they've announced?
So give me both launch window and then just overall announcements.
Okay, sure. So in the launch window, so Splatoon 2, it's not a launch game, but it is coming out, in like the, months after launch. I'm pretty excited for that. Because Splatoon 1, I really enjoyed a lot.
I was going to say, I checked out your videos on it. I know that you really dug it. So, yeah.
Yeah. It was, I never thought that Nintendo would ever be able to pull off like a multiplayer online shooting game.
Right.
And they found a way to put their own kind of Nintendo spin on it and develop a new IP, which is something that they haven't done in a long time. So I really, really dug it. I think it showed that Nintendo can, handle the infrastructure of an online multiplayer game, which they've never really done to that level, kind of before. So I'm really excited for that.
And I haven't heard anything negative. Like when Splatoon came out, I've watched tons of videos about it, and I didn't hear anything negative in terms of like online. Everyone seemed to really enjoy the game. So like, it should be way better on, I hope, on Nintendo Switch. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The only thing with it is that it looks, I haven't seen anything yet that really shows any huge things to make it different from the first one. I mean, I saw new weapons and maps. I didn't see anything mechanically different. Okay. But to me, that is not as terrible as it might be if the Switch was not a system to be made on the go. And if the Wii U was not such a massive failure, because I think that what Nintendo is banking on is, hey, we had all this great software that no one played, right? Because the Wii U, just did not sell. Yeah. So I think that they're like saying, hey, we need to make slightly updated versions of our software and make it portable. Sure. So like for me, playing Splatoon on the go is like awesome. I do a lot of traveling with my tutoring. I'm always driving around to different clients and like that kind of stuff. And like, I'm like, yo, if I could like get a quick 15-minute match in, like
that'd be nice, right?
Like I am about that.
You know what? I give Nintendo credit on that, man. I feel like Nintendo is the only system in this day and age, and probably forever, that can make a portable system, and people would respond positively to it.
Yeah. I mean, I never owned a Vita, but I played it, and I thought the Vita was an amazing system. But I thought that just like how Nintendo was with the Wii U, I don't feel like Sony really knew what to do with it. Like they kind of made something super powerful and just said, hey, here you go. Yeah. Play console games on the go, but you really can't because it's not really that powerful. So you kind of got these really weird ports of games, that kind of stuff. And like it had some great ideas on it, but like it was like great ideas without something really connecting and driving a message.
Right.
So some other games that I'm excited about. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Again, another game that is most likely going to be very similar to the Wii U version, but it's on the go, and it has like a proper kind of battle mode, which is something that I really love. Xenoblade 2. So yes. Xenoblade, I played a lot on the Wii U. Actually, that was the first Xenoblade game I'd ever played before.
Really?
Was Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii U, and I really enjoyed it.
Wait a second. You've never played a Xenoblade game before?
I had never played a Xenoblade game before. I'd always shied away.
Oh, man.
Because I always was like, man, like, I'm going to need to start from the beginning because there's all this history and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I kind of shied away from it. And then once I played Chronicles, I was like, man, I should have jumped in this earlier. This is awesome.
Yeah, man. Xenoblade is a really, really that's good stuff. That's good stuff. But I'm glad you liked it, though. See, you know what? And that's like, again, something to give props and point out that you said earlier. Nintendo, like the Wii system was a good starting point. Like it was a good entry point because there was a lot of people who weren't necessarily gamers before. Even young people, like even people in our age, but young professionals, like they were buying Wiis and they were like, yeah, I really don't play video game, but the Wii seems cool. Yeah. Like it wasn't intimidating like as PS4 and 360 and those systems were. So I'll definitely give it that.
Yeah. Other games I'm excited about is this weird game called ARMS, which has a really stupid name.
Yeah.
But like after and like I don't think it was demoed well on the presentation. But I watched a few of the developer videos where they kind of get into some of the technical parts of it, and I was like, this could actually be cool. Like I'm definitely not going to buy it as soon as it comes out. Like I'll kind of wait until the reviews and stuff.
Yeah.
But it looks like it could be kind of interesting.
Dude, it looks like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Like I looked at it and I saw it, and I was looking at the trailer, and I kind of looked at the trailer and I was like, okay. As soon as I saw it, I was like Rock'em Sock'em, but I was like, it kind of looks interesting. I was just like, I would play it. I was like, I really wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay $60 for it. That's the only thing.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that.
And it will probably launch at 60. So like, it's like one of those games where like I'm like, I can wait. I can see how things, like I can see how things go, and if it goes on sale or something, I might cop it. But I'm not that excited about it to like buy it. Right?
Yeah. Now, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm also excited about NBA 2K18 because I'll be able to play it on the go. I love NBA 2K. It's an awesome game. I've been playing the last few on a PS4 for like the last couple of years. I was even a big fan of the Spike Lee of the Living a Dream stuff. I know people really hated on that, but I thought it was dope. And as long as they deliver the full version of NBA 2K with franchise mode, with the RPG kind of like single player, all the multiplayer stuff, all the street ball courts. If I can have that stuff on the go, like that to me is incredible.
Okay.
And like a 2K is not really a game that really pushes a system kind of visually. So I think that the Switch can come off with a near identical version, to the PlayStation and the Xbox. So I'm really excited to play that game on the go.
So this is the thing, and I need to jump back a little bit because I'm thinking about it being a portable system as well. And I also realized, to be honest with you, can you explain to both myself and the listening audience exactly what was supposed to be the purpose of the Wii U? Because I'm thinking, because some people may still confuse it, those who aren't necessarily too familiar. They, because like we're seeing a lot of portable, playthroughs and a lot of portable videos in reference to the Switch. So those who aren't initiated might look at that and be like, okay, they're gonna give me another Wii U. Nah, I'm cool, son. I really don't want to.
Yep. So the thing is, they didn't have a purpose. Okay, that was the whole point of it. Is like Nintendo did not have a purpose. Like they just threw it out there. And they tried to coast on the Wii name and said, hey, like we'll just throw this out here, but what I interpreted the purpose is that they initially thought of but didn't really do a good job. Okay, so this isn't the purpose, but I think these are the ideas that led to the development of it. One was, the DS is always sold like gangbusters.
Yep.
And the DS has, a bottom touch screen that you use to control and a top screen that has kind of the visuals. So I thought that they tried to emulate that by like having a touch screen gamepad and then the screen on your
TV.
On your television. So I think that they tried to emulate that. So like that was the first thing I think. I think the second thing is when the Wii U came out is when, sales of not only iPads, but of all these other like cheaper, like a Google tablets and all this kind of stuff was really exploding.
Right.
So I think that like Nintendo thought, hey, like I see that all these people like these like sort of larger form factor things to like play these like touchscreen games and like that kind of stuff. So I think that they kind of try to marry those two ideas together, but they didn't really think about exactly how that would really work as a home console because I can tell you it got super annoying to have to look down at the gamepad and look up at the screen.
Yeah.
Like it was just fundamentally like
just wrong.
Like you couldn't use it for longer than like, like an hour.
Yeah, you'll get dizzy, right? Just kind of like constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. And the best games on the systems are ones that completely ignore the gamepad.
Oh.
I think the most famous example is like Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. The whole gamepad is just a steering wheel with a horn on it.
Oh,
so like there's no usage for the gamepad except a horn. So like Nintendo themselves gave up on using it, Jeez. and all the games that I consider to be like the greatest games on that system, except for Mario Maker and Splatoon, which like actually use the gamepad well. The majority of them just ignored it.
So you bought a Wii U as well?
I did buy a Wii U, yeah.
Ah, Shareef, you madman.
No. I think the Wii U I think that the software with the Wii U was incredible. I just think that the hardware had a lot of like limitations that annoyed me, but I'm always all about software. Okay. I have my PC for my super graphically intensive games. I have my PS4 for like Destiny,
right?
And like and like Last of Us and like those kind of games that I really love. They're never gonna come to like to like PC, and I have my Nintendo console for my Nintendo games.
Oh my gosh!
So like I like having sort of a variety of what games are, and those Nintendo games you're just not going to get anywhere else. So I thought that while the Wii U hardware held it back, I still think that the games on there were some of the best games of the generation. So,
So for your thoughts, do you think that like? Do you see this actually being a successful system? Do you see it actually not falling to the wayside? Kind of like the Wii/Wii U? Like what is it about the Nintendo Switch that you'll say that, you know what? I know you said earlier, like it's in the presentation, they gave people the purpose, right? But I mean, that's gonna not really fly with a lot of people. But just in terms of like usage, games, graphics, so on, like even the way the system looks, like what are a couple things that you think is going to set this aside, like set this apart from the Wii U and the Wii itself?
Sure. So I think the one thing is that they know what the hell this thing is and what it's used for. And they knew that with the Wii, which is why they sold it to people that, don't know shit about gaming, but could understand the message. Right. And the Wii U, they confused even people that are super into gaming, Yeah. So I think that with this, they're like, hey, it's the Switch. You put it in the console and you take it out, and that's it. So it's a very simple message, and I believe that there's enough people that will appeal to make it a success. Now, it won't appeal to everyone, absolutely not. I think that this really only appeals to people that see the value of the on-the-go gaming, or that value the Nintendo franchises that much, right? Because I don't care what Nintendo says, this is not going to get, massive third-party support. No. I think it's going to get better than the Wii U, and I think it's going to get enough third-party support.
I mean, yeah, they have a bunch. Like, that was a part of their presentation as well, too, talking about how many games they're going to have for third parties.
I think they're going to get good third-party support, but when people think of third-party support, they think of the big AAA games.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And like I don't think those are ever coming back. And to be honest, I don't want them to come back for the reasons that I said before. I don't think that developers can make these huge games for 3 different systems and have them all come out well.
Right, I agree.
So I'd rather them focus on the Xbox and the PS4 for like those games, and then focus on more unique experiences for the Switch. So I think that the fact that Nintendo has a clear message, and I think that the fact that the system looks visually appealing, so that if you see it in a display or like you try it out at like a demo, I think it kind of has that like visceral feel of like something that like doesn't feel like it's cheap, or like easily kind of disposable, as like you said. And I think the price as well. While I was hoping for a $250 price, which I still think that if they did, it would have been better. I think $300 is a fair price, given that you get 2 controllers, and you really don't, unless you're trying to do a 4-player game, or like you're really into like having like the Pro Controller or like all that stuff. Like you're getting 2 controllers, and then you add on a game for like another $60, right? So you're basically getting, a system that you can play with a friend, for $360 plus tax, which is way under.
True. Where
if you buy a PlayStation or a Xbox One,
$500, man, you're looking
easy. So like I think that they have that like a price advantage, and a clear marketing message and a good looking kind of hardware. So I think those things will be enough to bring back people that are interested in Nintendo franchises that did not want to buy a Wii U because of the hardware. I think that they've lost a huge audience that they'll never get back, and I don't think they should try to get them back.
Right.
Because there are some people that are just like, hey, I'm more interested in the AAA third party stuff, and I'm not going to get that on a Nintendo console. I'm like, yeah, you're not.
Yeah.
So like if like you're buying one console and you're interested in that, don't get a Switch.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it was a good entry point to kind of like take you up to the next level, but those people, yeah.
I mean, I love like Nintendo games, but I would not be happy if that was my only console, because I also love other kind of games, right? I gotta play Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yeah, yes, for sure.
I gotta play.
Is Resident Evil 7 going to be on there? Probably
absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, yeah. I'm playing that now. Fantastic game.
I gotta pick it up, man.
Exactly. I love Watch Dogs 2 and Battlefield 1 and Titanfall 2, and like these are the kind of games that will never ever be on a Nintendo console.
So, do you think Nintendo games are worth $60?
In general, I don't think games are worth $60. I think Nintendo games are. I think that the AAA ones, like your Splatoons and Marios and Zeldas, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I do think they need some more variable pricing, though. For example, so like they have a game 1-2 Switch, right? That's like kind of like this game where it's like a party game where you do.
Oh, right. I saw that.
That's not a $60 game.
Yeah.
You have a game, like ARMS, right? So that shouldn't be a
$39.99.
Yeah. I think I wish that there was more variability in like prices, and that consumers would see that price and not automatically think ill about a game, because I think that's one reason why they do continually price at $60, because they think that if they price it any lower, that consumers will think that it's a bad game,
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
I think the fact that The Last Guardian for the PS4 got this $20 permanent price cut, I'm like, why didn't you just launch at $40?
Yeah, like
so many people would have bought that game, and I think there's so many games in general that would do so much better if they were $40 or even $30.
Right.
I think a game like Steep from like a Ubisoft, really good looking game, but very niche, right? It's like a snowboarding, skiing, base jumping game. Dope. If you're into that, great. That should not be a $60 game.
You know what? I think it's like it's a weird, people I think we as consumers don't realize, like, we have to realize that we have to take ownership that we have allowed ourselves to be brainwashed into this mindset. Because then on the one hand, and it's kind of unfair, and allow me to be devil's advocate for, for the developers here, because then if a game is priced properly or decently at $30 to $40, which is honestly true, and I've seen it, because I've seen some really, really good games that are like $40, and people are like, nah, it's only $40. That means that it's garbage. And I'm like, no, it's actually a really good game. And I feel like, and then you, when games are $60, but they're trash, then you're like, I can't believe they charge us like $60 for this. It's just like, which one do you want? For example, I know Khalif is gonna remember this because him and I played this game together. Mag.
Right, Mag, yeah.
Yeah, that garbage.
128 players.
Yeah, right. That absolute that oh man, that thing was it's so horrible. But I think that was like a $60 game.
Yeah.
Like, to try to do something like that, and then people got mad. It's like, oh, they beat us in the head for $60, yada yada yada. But I felt like those same people that were saying that, if the game was $40, would have been like, nah, I don't want to get it because it's only $40.
Yeah, it's a conundrum that the industry has kind of put itself into, you know?
Yeah.
For example, Capcom hasn't announced a price for that Ultra Street Fighter 2 that's coming out for the Switch. If that's $60, as much as I love Street Fighter, I'm not getting it.
Yeah,
you know? And I would love to have another Street Fighter game on the go. I played Street Fighter 4 on the 3DS all the time. You know, like I like it actually better than 5.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people actually like Street Fighter.
Yeah, it's a great game.
Yeah,
you know, but if you're gonna do a new version of a 20-year-old game for $60, no, absolutely not. You know,
that's crazy, man. $60 for a Street, and I mean, and to kind of like add on to your point, not only is it a 20-year-old game, but you also got to think that people right now, because again, my listeners, FGC head over here. A lot of people are still playing Super Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and it's kind of like people are gonna be like, okay, everyone's still enjoying that. That game was at Evo. It was a contender this year to be on the Evo main stage. Again, this year, a lot of people don't know that ST was in contention and people are trying to donate to get it up there. So I definitely agree to have this game remade, and okay, you have Violent Ken and Violent Ryu, and people are going to be like, okay, so what? So I'm not going to pay $60 for that. Like, and then I'm paying $60 for a game on a system that I'm only going to get it to play this one game. And then that's absolutely not happening.
Yeah. It's like, if like any company, I think that Nintendo, who, really prides itself on, including families within gaming. If any company can justify having lower prices, it would be them, especially because they turn a profit on each console. Right. So like Sony and like Xbox, for the first year and a half, 2 years, they're losing money on every console, and they have to make
Xbox
it up.
to hell. Damn Xbox to the deepest.
Yeah, and they have to make it up through the licensing and the game prices. So I can almost understand how they have every game at 60. Mm-hmm. But like Nintendo, I feel like, they could really say, hey, if like they had different tiers of like pricing, I think it would work out well. That's one reason I love PC gaming, right?
Yes.
I mean, $60 games, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Yeah, and they're good. And some of the $15, $20 games are actually really, really good. So
exactly.
What is it? Do you think it's like that marketing thing where like that never necessarily kind of caught on in PC? Like that marketing never caught on of like, oh yeah, it's like, if you gave me $60, it's trash.
No, I really think what happened with PC is because PC escaped retail, right? So, back when I was first buying games, like back when there was like Software Etc. and Babbage's, Funko, way before all of them got sucked up into GameStop, there were as many PC games at these retail stores as there were console games.
I remember that. Yep.
So I remember back then most PC games cost as much as console games, and I think that once PC got phased out of like retail because of the massive sales of like the original PlayStation and then the Xbox, and they started doing the majority of their sales digitally, right? They had more leeway to experiment with the price, because I think the reason that the $6 thing is really because of retail.
You're right. Yeah, definitely.
Right. because like they gotta get that extra cut and give it to
that
Walmart
overhead
and GameStop and like Target and like all these places. So I feel like that's really pressured them to really price the games up, and like I think that's why they went from $50 to $60.
Right.
So I think it's really because PC has been absent from retail. I mean, for God, like maybe 10 or 15 years at this point.
Yeah. I mean, in my mind, I would say bucking up on 20 years now, but yeah, 15 sounds about right.
Yeah.
I remember Funko Land and like seeing PC games and like, I remember
I
that
used
was like
to buy,
a part of the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember going to the store and buying Quake 3, oh my
gosh.
You know what I'm saying? At like a store, and like now, like the PC section of a store is like this tiny little shelf.
Yep.
That is all, and like all the games are games that if you buy them, they just give you a code to download it on Steam or something.
Exactly. So you might as well go on Steam anyway and just get it off Steam.
Exactly. So like I think not having that retail pressure is what allowed them to be able to offer these different tiers of pricing, because they don't have to give that cut to a retailer.
So what is it about? I mean, and I love how we just eased on into the PC conversation. You see that, Khalif? That's how you do it. That's how you do it.
He's on down the road.
Like, so what is it like? We talk about, obviously there's not this retail overhead, but how come like it's still persisted? Like the PC master race still lives like heavily today. You would think because it's lost that retail, I guess, like, I don't know if it's like retail edge is the proper term, but it's because it's no longer in retail, because it's no longer at the forefront of people's minds visually when they walk into a store. Like, what is it about PC gaming that has still persisted like all these years, man? It's crazy, and and it's not slowing up. I think it's actually kind of picking up speed over the recent couple of years, especially with the new onset of like, the new console's supposed to be powerful. A lot of people are like, nah, bullshit, because like look at the game, look at Skyrim on my PC, and look at Skyrim on the 360, slash PS3, now, Xbox One versus PS4, and it's always been way above. So what is it about the master race?
Well, I think there's a couple things. First of all, I don't like the master race thing.
I know it's like weird. I know. Weird. After I said that, I was just like, wait. I was like, I forget. I was like, it's two brothers on the show. And then we're like, master race. They were like, nah, let me.
I feel like it's something that Donald Trump would say if he was talking about gaming. So the first thing I think is Steam. I think that before Steam came around, there were digital games, but it was a very cumbersome process to get them and to keep them updated. Like there wasn't a consistent way to deliver patches and like, updating for all the various things that happen with like PC gaming, because they have to be maintained more than a console game because you have all these different hardware configurations. Right. So I think once Steam came around and said, hey, you can buy your games here. They're automatically updated. You can delete them and re-download them and all that kind of stuff. I think that's where PC gaming really took off, because it became way easier to buy a PC game and keep it updated than it did to get a console game and keep that updated. Right. Because it took a while for, Xbox Live and still the PlayStation Network has super slow download times.
Yes,
I don't understand, and I don't understand why. Because I'm on the same network, but on Steam I can download stuff at 8 megs a second, and on the same hardwired network, it takes me like overnight to download a 4 gigabyte thing on Sony.
Dude, like that, I absolutely agree on, because literally just the other day, I downloaded like a movie that was like a Blu-ray movie.
Yeah.
It was like 10 gigs or something crazy. And like it finished in like 15 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. It's like amazing. So I definitely think that it's Steam, absolutely. And I also think that PC gaming has always appealed to a large group of hobbyists and technophiles that like control over their electronics. Whether it's people that like to tinker with cars or radios, there's people that like to tinker with computers. So they like to go inside, they like to buy components, and they like to continually upgrade. So I think that group of people will never go away. That's always been the basis of PC gaming is sort of like the hobbyists that love to fiddle around in their PCs. So I think that that's the second thing. I think the third thing is that the cost of PC game has come down like astronomically.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started PC gaming was really when 3D accelerated cards first came out. So this is when like there was a company called 3D Effects that like eventually got bought by Nvidia, and like they had these cards, the Voodoo 1, the Voodoo 2, the Voodoo 3, and these cards were like really expensive, and just to buy a computer with, you know, like a Pentium 2 processor and 16 gigs of RAM
used to
and
be
like
so expensive.
All that kind of stuff was really expensive. And now if you look at desktop prices, and like obviously you're going to have things like Alienware that are always going to be super expensive. But if you just want to play the majority of PC games at settings that are still better than the consoles, you only have to pay like a couple $100.
Yep.
You know, and you get that like flexibility to not have to wait for a PS4 Pro or a Scorpio. I can say, hey, I want a new graphics card, you know, or like I want more RAM, or I want to switch out the processor, and just get it and see an immediate benefit, you know.
And it's funny that is very true, because we do live in a, some people might try to deny that, but we do live in a very gimme, very infantilized like society where everyone's just like, I want it, and I want it now. Yeah. So that idea of just being able to go to the store, you buy it, you put it in, boom, it looks good.
Yeah. All the prices of like PC stuff has come down so much. Like I almost can't believe it, like how affordable it is if you really wanted to get into PC gaming. And additionally is, you know, you still get things that you can't really get on the consoles. Like I have a Oculus Rift, right?
Yes, I was just gonna go right into that. Awesome,
yeah,
thank you.
And you know, I've used the PS4, the PS VR. It's great, right? But it's like Oculus is night and day. I mean, it is like just not even close. Yeah, you know. So I mean, I still think that there are specific experiences that you can only get on a PC that makes it worth it for me to invest, you know, in like what it takes to maintain it.
So if there's a listener right now only plays console and they're like, hey, Shareef, I kind of want to get into PC gaming, what would be your recommendations for someone just kind of like wanting to get into PC gaming and they want to play Skyrim and they want to play all those games? Like, what would you recommend for them to start with?
So first I would ask their budget because
very good.
Because while the cost to get in has lowered significantly, you know, it can go up to infinity. I mean, if you balling like that and like you want to do 4K 60 frames a second gaming, then you could spend thousands of dollars on a setup if you want to. Right. So I would ask for their budget and just start from there. You know, if they're somewhat tech savvy, I would always advise them to build their own computer. It's much simpler than like you think. Now it's pretty much like putting Legos together. You're just snapping things into parts and that's it. You know, if there's somebody that like wants to be a little hands off, you know, just spend $400, $500 on a desktop, you know, as long as it's something with a discrete graphics card that like you can actually like remove. Because I've seen some of these more lower priced PCs, the reason that the lower price is because all the stuff is like soldered in. So like you can't replace the graphics card, can't replace like the memory. So you don't want that. Because the whole point of like PC gaming is that if you want to change something, if like you see something on sale or like a deal on Newegg or like something, you could just jump on it. So I think that the good thing about PC gaming is it pretty much will fit any budget. Well, not any budget. I mean, obviously you got to invest a few $100s to get in the game. But I think as long as you're willing to do that, it pretty much fits everyone, and you pretty much can play at this point almost every major game.
Wow! Yeah, because, you can. Yeah, GTA,
because for Microsoft,
Skyrim, everything, Street Fighter, everything.
Well, I even mean the previously exclusive to console games, because with Xbox Anywhere, I played Gears 4 on PC. I played Forza Horizon 3.
How did it look? How did Gears look on PC?
Oh, it looks incredible. It looks amazing.
It probably looks
It's a really good looking game. It is a really good looking game. And it looks really good in 4K as well. Like incredible.
Okay, so now let me ask you for myself, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it seriously. My birthday is coming up, well, in April, 420. Woo, and I don't smoke, so don't ask me, people. I don't smoke herbs. Like no form of drugs, so don't bother even asking me. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like I know I look like I'm cool with the tattoos, and I used to have stretch ears, but I'm not into the drug taking. So
Right.
you can forget about that. I want to get a PC. I can build my own, by the way. I've done it before, but I'm looking for that 4K experience. So where would you tell me to start with?
So that will definitely be a little pricier. So the first thing that you would start with is a monitor that can support 4K. Okay, and that's probably going to be one of your priciest things that you're going to get.
Yep.
Because most sold monitors are still 1080p or maybe 1440p kind of monitors.
Yeah, we actually got some 4Ks at work, and they were like, they were really expensive.
Yeah, so like that would be the first thing, right? Is like to invest in a quality 4K monitor with HDR and all that kind of stuff.
Like zero, like reduced lag and all that kind of
exactly. So like that's going to be a significant portion of the expense.
Right.
The other significant portion is going to be like your graphics card. Because for consistent 4K gaming, you really want to get one of the more advanced cards, like a GeForce 1080, which is going to run you a few $100, right? Yep. So I have the one right below it, 1070, which ran me about $200. But it's good enough for the Oculus, and I can pretty much run everything, at resolutions above 1080 very well.
Wow.
But I definitely can't do like consistent 4K at a high frame rate. I always prefer to sacrifice resolution to get a better frame rate because I don't know. I'm like one of those nuts that can tell the difference between, 30 frames and 60 frames very easily.
Oh, okay. Really?
Oh yeah. Which is like one reason that, every time I game on a console, I'm like, oh man, I just wish
this looks bad.
It's not that it looks bad. It's just different. It's just a different experience.
Yeah.
So the monitor and your graphics card are going to by far be your most expensive things. Everything else is pretty routine. Get a basic motherboard that like supports, like an i5 or an i7 kind of processor, and like get like at least 8 gigs of RAM, and like RAM is like super cheap. And then it's just mouse and keyboard and like that kind of stuff. So it's really about the monitor and the graphics card are really going to be the ones where like you're going to invest probably more than half of the cost of.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough. You know what? And because I'm also thinking of like getting a decent controller. I know, dude, I used to try it back in the day, and I think there was this game on PC called like Texter or something like that. And it was like a robot that turned into like a jet plane or something like that. That I remember. I used to play with my cousin back in the day. Like, and I think it's like Texter or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. We used to play Outrun on the PC.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah. Or back in the day with my cousins. So I'm very like, I have to use a controller. Like I'll be the dude with like the crazy.
I think a controller is fine as long as you're not trying to play competitive multiplayer games, because you will get absolutely destroyed if you try to use a controller.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you just don't have the same kind of reaction time. Okay. The thing about gaming on consoles is that the games are tuned to have the reaction time of turning with an analog stick, so everybody turns at the same rate. If you're playing against somebody that can just snap their mouse and turn 180 degrees in half a second,
that's
like
it.
You just have a significant disadvantage. So I think a controller is fine as long as you're not looking to get into competitive multiplayer.
No. Like I'd be playing like Skyrim and like like GTA and like
that's fine with a
RPGs
controller
and stuff like that on it.
Yeah,
it'll definitely be like that form of experience for me because I already know. Like I've seen, like I have some coworkers who actually play, and they've shown me videos of people playing like Call of Duty and stuff like that. And it's like the headshots. I'm like, that's just cheap, dude.
It's like a whole different. It's like a whole different experience, man. Like I play a lot of Overwatch on the PC. I tried to play it on PS4, and it felt so sluggish.
Really?
Like it just, and like I don't mean the speed of the game. I just mean just the fact that I'm used to, like, I'm just darting around,
Yeah.
darting around.
Yeah.
And like on the console, I'm just like slowly turning this way, slowly turning that way. It's just a whole different thing. So, the good thing about PCs now is that they all now support both the Xbox One and the PS4 controller.
Yep.
So all you need is an adapter, and you can use a controller that you already have, for your console. I use the Xbox One controller, and it's great. Almost every PC game now has default mapping, so it's not like you got to go in and map.
Like back in the day, dude. You remember what that was like?
I hated that back in the day. I hated that.
Let me tell you guys something. I'm about to age myself right now. So a couple years ago, when I lived in New York, I used to work for a market research company. I was a manager of a market research company out in New York City, and I worked with this company, and they were doing a video game study. Now, I can't say the name of the game or anything like that. I don't want to get in trouble. But
right.
They basically, these people knew nothing about technology who worked for this video game company. They wanted me to rent 12 PCs and run a video game on it. Shareef, Mr. Jackson. These people didn't know that they had to rent, also needed better video cards.
Oh, gotcha.
Exactly. So imagine me renting 12 PCs, and then I had to go back, and I was like, wait a second. They're like, yeah, so we're just gonna rent them, and I'm like, I don't think
there's a little more in that too.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't think these games are gonna work. And I remember my client being like, what do you mean they don't work? Obviously, they gave the project to me, and I wasn't even a project manager at that time. I was just like a manager of the focus group facility, and but everyone knew that I was the gamer dude. So I was just like, I'll be a project manager for them, like whatever, I'll do it for them. And then I remember explaining to the client, I was like, oh no, I was like, you need like the graphics card that like like your memory and everything, like it has to match up. I was like, you need like good monitors because there's gonna be like a lag. And I was just like, if people aren't necessarily familiar, they're gonna think it's the game that's laggy, so you're gonna have like another set of issues. And I was just like, the information that you're gonna receive might be skewed, is going to be off, because people are going to be viewing this game, and it may not necessarily be the issues that they may experience, may not necessarily be the game. It may be just the setup. Dude, they didn't understand any of this.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's not surprising.
Yeah, they didn't. I mean, but these are corporate people getting paid to do this. Like, so that blew my mind. Then they sent me. So my brother, like my younger brother, helped me out. We did it the entire weekend. Then they sent me. They're like, "Oh, we have a driver that we're gonna give you, that's gonna help you, that they can play. They can use PS3 controllers on." Mind you, I had to ask them for this because they were like, "Yeah, you can just." I was just like, "Yeah, you see how you're laughing?" So I'm like, yeah, "Dude," and they were like, and I told them, I was like, "You guys should straight up just hire me." I'm like, "I don't know why you guys don't hire me." But I was just like, so they're like, "Oh, Milton, so like they can just plug and play, right?" I'm like, no.
Yeah, no.
So this was like years ago. So they're like, "You can't plug and play." I'm like, "No, you can't plug and play." I'm like, I was like, "You can do it with a driver." I'm like, "But you need a driver to be able to do something like that, because it's just two different technologies." Like they don't go together. I was like, it's not gonna work. Dude, they were like, "Oh yeah," I was like, "As a matter of fact, our team made a driver for the PlayStation controller." I said, "Okay, send it over. I'll test it." Took me an hour. I had to go into their system to download it. Whatever. I downloaded the thing. It does not work. I had to spend my weekend, and that time, like, that's when I was like, super blurred. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna rewrite this for you guys.
Wow! Holy crap! You must have really wanted to get hired.
I was like, I need the code for this. I was like, because it's wrong. And they're like, and the lady was like, "What do you mean code?" And I was like, okay, I need to stop talking to you. Can you just put me on to your technology department? I was like, I need to speak to people in your technology department. and I had to like rewrite some of the code for it, and it still didn't work properly, dude. Like, so to just to put it into context, the point of that was to say like to have a Brooks converter and have all these things, and the ability to plug and play. You guys may take it for light, but Shareef and I know the struggle of the days of like.
It's been a long road, man. Like, I mean, the fact that, as you said, drivers. I mean, back in the day, you had to worry about drivers for even things like your printer.
For everything.
This is like pre-USB kind of stuff. Like,
yes,
anything you connected, you needed a driver, and it was usually like you had to scour a website, and maybe it was outdated. And there were custom ones that people wrote for like. Everything. I remember having keyboards that wouldn't work because I didn't have a driver.
Yes, dude. Like, oh my gosh. And then I remember like I was telling someone just recently actually, and I was just like, they were like, oh, they always made PC controllers, but I'm like, oh, you're young. I'm like, I could tell you were born in the 90s, and they're like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, PC controllers were shit back in the day. They were
terrible.
They were garbage. I'm like,
they were awful.
Garbage.
I remember having this like Logitech.
Oh my God, Logitech!
This like Logitech controller that literally cramped my hand, and like I would really try my best to use it because like there's some things that mouse and keyboard just aren't good at, like racing games and sports games. So like I would always buy my sports games on the PC because I liked all the modding and that kind of stuff. Right. But I couldn't play them on the keyboard, so I would try to use these horrible boomerang-looking Logitech controllers that were just awful. Dude, they were awful.
The days of that suffering, I don't think that people really understand what it means and like how it's awesome to just be able to play PC games right now and then just kind of just enjoy it and not necessarily have to worry about drivers, not necessarily have to worry about controllers or all those kind of things. Because even though we may say like, oh, because this is the thing that some people complain about, which is weird because I've heard this from people. I don't know if you have as well, where they're like, oh, yeah, your games on the PC constantly needs to be updated and stuff like that. I'm like, but why is that a bad thing? I'm like, consoles update as well, too.
Yeah, I think it's great, and as I said before, because there's so many different configurations, you can never 100% bug test every single config, right? As opposed to bug testing a PS4. Right. So I have a higher requirement for console games because I'm like, I have one console. You should be able to get the majority of the major bugs out. And some of these games still launch with major bugs. Tons. You know what I'm saying? Tons. I'm not talking about those minor bugs that one person finds because they're exploring and intentionally trying to find things wrong. I mean, like, when No Man's Sky came out, I remember a lot of people saying on the PlayStation that it would like hard crash to the menu. I was like, that is inexcusable. That is completely inexcusable.
Mine froze a couple times. It won't even do that. Like, they're good. Like, whoever had like the hard crash to the menu, at least it went to the menu. I've had one where I was literally taking off and it was just stop.
Yeah, I mean, that to me is unacceptable. But that can sometimes happen if you're running some weird PC configuration, with some weird kind of setup that they just can't test. Right. So the fact that I can buy something from Steam and the other game delivery places have like also caught up, like Uplay and games for Windows and all. Well, I forgot what Microsoft calls it now, Xbox Game Store or like whatever. They all auto update as well, and they do it in the background. You don't even have to initiate it. You just leave the thing running, and updates just come and they download and install and cool. Like everything. That's really cool. Like every time I go to play a game, it's automatically updated. I have to go and check to see what the update was. Yeah, what? Yeah, even though they do update a lot, you rarely notice.
That's true. That's very true.
And that would be the same on PS4 because that updates in the background as well if you leave it in like a sleep mode. Yes. But because the updates take so long,
dude, forever.
Every time I turn it on, I'm like, yo, this Destiny update isn't done yet. It's like 2 gigs.
You know what? And let me say this for the people who are going to be like, oh, I don't have that problem. You're in the minority, okay? So
you are definitely in the minority.
Don't pretend because you don't have the issue. Don't do that. It's just like some people update their iPhones and they get bricked. You know what I'm saying? There's like one or two people who will update their iPhone and then it'll be bricked, and then the other millions of people who have iPhones, like nothing happens to it. Like you just can't take those 2-3 people who got a bricked iPhone and say like, oh, there's an epidemic of bricked iPhones. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I pay for a 50 megabits per second connection. I get great download speeds on my PC, on my phone, on my laptop. PlayStation 4 is the only device hooked up to my network, and it's hardwired in. I'm not using Wi-Fi. That just has these abysmal speeds. And like I've read about it from other people in the same kind of situation. So it's definitely not isolated. Like I'm not sure how fast the Microsoft speeds are because I don't have an Xbox One, but I could definitely say on the PS4 side, I just almost can't believe that.
Yeah, it's really bad. Now, since I have you here, this is another thing. You mentioned this earlier, and I wanted to talk to you about it because I've experienced it only in like a test kind of situation. But you've had it for a couple months. You've dealt with it. I've listened to you on Spawn and Me. You guys had many great conversations about it, and it's finally here. You got it. How is the Oculus Rift? Like you've had months and months of playtime with it. So how is it truly now? Because I haven't really heard anything since it's dropped. It kind of just fell to the wayside. So how has it been for you?
It is literally game changing.
Wow.
And I know you can say that for a lot of, that's kind of marketing speak for a lot of
Are you being hyperbolic
things.
right now, Shareef? Are you being
I promise I am not being hyperbolic. This is literally the first like truly, truly unique game changing thing in video games.
What makes it so game changing? Aside, people are gonna be like, well, it's obvious it's VR, but in your opinion, like
in my opinion, I have never been as immersed in the environment of a game as with VR. And the Oculus, if you have the computer to run it, it does it in such a high fidelity that like when I'm playing a game, for like example, where I'm at a certain height and I'm looking down, like my stomach is feeling like butterflies, and like if I'm going fast in like a racing game or like a game like a Thumper, like my heart is racing. Like your body is reacting to the game way different than when you're just playing. I mean, I really think this is like more game changing than say motion control and stuff. I'd say this is equivalent to seriously like the development of like the modern controller, like in terms of how it affects games, like
your interaction with the game and your
it is like just completely. It's completely unique experience, and every time I put it on, I literally get sucked in. Now, with that said, it is still a very high-priced kind of niche thing,
right? And
I'm not sure if VR will ever get mainstream success until the price of the technology goes down. Even with PSVR, which has sold reasonably well. I can't see VR being something that becomes like a mainstream thing for a couple of years. But as it is now, as like sort of this like...
Is it just because of the price? Is it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's the price. I mean, the PSVR is still $400
another
on
system.
top of a console.
Yeah.
And, and the Oculus and the Vive are, $600, But, I mean... And the fact that, that they both now have these like motion controls so you can reach and touch things and vibration. I mean, it is amazing, but unfortunately it's something that's hard to explain. Like you kind of always say, hey, you just got to try it.
Try it. Right.
And that's hard to sell people on a $700 device that they have to try.
Yeah, that's true. Cause like, I mean, I've had experience with it, but it wasn't in depth. So that's why I was just like, let me defer to you because you've had, you actually have it. You've had months of it. So tell me, like, the second question is like, what games are on it? Like, what games are you playing? Like, because I literally have no idea. So what games are you playing really?
So I play mostly original games for like the Oculus. So like, as we talked about sort of how PC has that advantage of price tiering, there's a lot of games for the Oculus at any kind of price. So I haven't really bought a lot of the $60 kind of games, but I've played with a lot of like sort of indie kind of like
that new budget, huh?
Games. Yeah. I will say though that even though this doesn't have Oculus support, I've heard that Resident Evil 7 on the PSVR is exceptionally well done.
Yes.
Now, I've been playing it on the PC, and without VR, that game is terrifying. So I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I'm cool on that. I'm cool on
playing
it
in VR with these people like jumping in your face and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms of the games I've really enjoyed, I've really enjoyed it. There's like a VR mod for Team Fortress 2.
Oh, wow.
Which is really cool. There's a game called Damaged Core, which is like a first person shooter game where you kind of like can teleport into other people and like control them.
Oh, that's crazy. You know, when you said Damaged Core, I was thinking Recore for some reason.
Not. I did not enjoy Recore.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, that's what
I did not.
We have to talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did not. I also really enjoyed this game called I Expect You to Die, which is it's like a James Bond kind of game where like you're like a spy, and it's like a puzzle game. So like you start in a situation like you're tied up in a car, and like you kind of have to figure out like, all right, I press this button that opens the window, but there's gas outside, so I got to grab this gas mask on the seat. I got to put it on. I got to shoot this thing out, get this thing. Oh. So like it's like a puzzle game where like you have to figure out how to get out of these like predicaments. It's really fun, and it really adds to it because, for like example, on the first level when you're in this car, you're physically looking to the right and reaching through the seat. You're like looking in back of you and grabbing stuff from like the back seat. You know, it feels really cool. So I really enjoy that game. Okay. A recent game that was recommended to me by Jeff Kanata of the DLC podcast that I really liked as well. It's called Dead Hungry. And it has this ridiculous premise where it's the zombie apocalypse and you're basically working in a food truck. And these zombies come in and they place orders and you have to fulfill their order before they kill you, basically.
What?
So like you're like grilling hamburgers, you're making fries, you're doing like you're making shakes and floats and fish and like all this kind of stuff, and there's a meter that goes down, and if you don't give it to them in time, you are dead. And you know, VR makes it so much better because, you know, all your raw ingredients are on the left and your grill is on the right. So you're constantly like, you're grabbing stuff, like you're putting it on there. You're like making your burger, you're switching out, you're like throwing it at these zombies and making like a second one. You know, one thing I really love about VR is how it really gets your body into it, but not in like an annoying way, like the Wii with some of like the waggle stuff. Yeah. Like it's really like does it in a smart way that really makes the games so much more fulfilling. I'm still waiting for them to deliver on a real sort of traditional AAA experience in VR. That's why I'm really intrigued in how Resident Evil is. But unfortunately, Sony bought the VR rights to that game for at least a year, so it won't get any Oculus support on the PC for at least a year.
So 2018, 2019, that's when you're going to see, you know, and it's probably going to be absolutely insane.
It probably will. Yes. So like, I think that's really what it's going to take, plus the lowering of VR's price to really attract people, is if you start to see sort of the bigger budget experiences made in VR modes. Right. But yeah, I mean, I've been playing a ton of games. There's a whole Oculus store, plus there's a lot of games on Steam that like are VR compatible. I think one of the best games, it's a really complex game, but if you get into it, it's really, really rewarding. Elite Dangerous. That has a VR mode. You know, it's like a space sim where like you have a spaceship and like you can like either be a trader or an attacker. You can land on planets. You can meet other people. All that kind of stuff.
So it's like would you say it's a better version to what's the game we just mentioned that I paid for in the No Man's Sky?
Yeah, it's a much more hardcore game than No Man's Sky. It's like much more, you know, No Man's Sky, I would say, is more of a casual version of Elite Dangerous. Oh, wow. No Man's Sky is like more about the experience and relaxation and kind of chilling.
Right.
Ellie Dangerous is like, yo, these people trying to kill you, son. Get out of there.
He's like, yo,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or hey, I need gas. I got to find somebody to barter with so I could get some gas. You know.
Oh,
so,
that's kind of sick, man.
So yeah, it's a really intense game. And in VR, it is amazing because space games work really well in VR because there's no floor and no ceiling, so you can look all around you and see the galaxy. And it just, as I said before, if you play the right game, you feel it in your stomach, like your brain gets tricked.
Man, No Man's Sky would be so sick in VR and like.
Yeah, I was actually.
I could imagine.
At first, I was really surprised that they didn't have it in VR, but then after I saw how badly that game launched, and like how small Hello Games is, I was like, I'm glad you guys didn't try VR because that would have meant less time to this original game that launched buggy. So I'm almost glad that they didn't kind of take it on because they showed that they couldn't really handle a non-VR game.
No, not at all. So, and I paid for it, and I paid full price for the game. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I like it for what it is. I just think, unfortunately, with Sony backing it, the fact that they showed it at like 2 or 3 E3s in a row, they let the hype get out of control. If it would have launched as a regular indie game for say $40, nobody would have had as much of a problem with it. But the fact that it was positioned as, hey, this is really going to justify your PS4 purchase, this is going to be something like you've never seen before. It just didn't live up to that billing.
And like, and even the videos, because I was at a point I was trying to defend it as well, and then somebody made a YouTube video, kind of basically, I forgot the lead guy's name, but there's like clips of him talking about like,
Sean Murray. Yeah.
Sean Murray's like, yeah, these are all the experiences, and this is what you're gonna do, and you're gonna be able to do this, and you're gonna be able to do that, and it's like, we understand sometimes people can oversell a game, or I think we're both, you, Khalif, and people like in our group, like we're realistic gamers. We're adults. Yes. We're all in our 30s. We're not 16 years old. We're not foolish. We're all intelligent people. So we understand that, sometimes they may want to do something, you may not be able to bring it to market, especially you being a tech guy and that's what you do.
Right.
And I understand that as well. But I feel like there were so many aspects of this game that he sold that weren't even close to being there, that I felt like when the game came out and they weren't there, people were like, dude, come on.
That was the big problem. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everyone oversells their games.
Right, exactly.
People always complain that these E3 trailers don't look like the final games, and developers, tend to make promises that, don't really hold up to the reality of a game crunch where you just got to get it out and you might not have time to implement things that you promised. But No Man's Sky was that times 1,000 because... as we said before, if you buy a system, you're going to have that drought. PS4 had that drought.
Yes,
this was that one game that people were like, hey, I bought a PS4. I'm looking for things to play. This is the game that's going to, justify being in the next gen.
And I had I do have a PS4 and I love it, but like, it's definitely that thing. And I feel like, and that's what I appreciate about you, and it's just kind of like, and even David, aka what's up, David, aka Pooh Bear. Like, you guys love Nintendo, but you're some of the few people that I know that can honestly critique Nintendo. Oh yes, I hate Nintendo fanboys. I hate fanboys in general. But Nintendo fanboys are some of the worst. Yeah, dude. Like, it's just kind of like, you're crazy. There's nothing. Like, come on, man. Like, come on, stop. Like every console has problems. You can't assume that just because somebody doesn't like your thing that it's like some personal attack, exactly, or like something like that. And if you're a Nintendo fanboy, you got to realize that Nintendo is not. They're not doing well with the Wii U. That does not mean that the company, that every purchase that you ever did is not just, is something wrong with it. Exactly. Like, I feel like fanboys take stuff too personal when it's a video game business. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And it's about making money. Dude, and I remember when PlayStation crashed, people were like talking to me like if Sony was like created by my family, like if I had like a personal stake in Sony. People were like, yo, so what's up with that crash, man? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that hack? I'm like, it happens. I'm like, you know what? And they're like, how do you feel? And like, I realized like every time, this is how I would break it down to them. And then they always got quiet because they realized they're like, oh shit, he's actually not an idiot. I'd be like, well, you know, I give props to Microsoft. Like, that's their background, technology. That's what they do. And they were smart to actually charge for it and then have it be able to kind of form its own infrastructure because it's a paid service. So then you have people who are actually constantly looking at it. You know, you have like, you know, tech people that are on staff that you're paying to kind of, you know, to consistently, you know, look after and maintain that infrastructure of your online. I was like, and even then it's, you know, it's had its issues, but I'm like, I was like, I've never said that I don't give like Microsoft their props. I was like, I totally give them their props. I was like, you know, Sony fucked up and, you know, hopefully this doesn't happen again. But I was like, yeah, they absolutely dropped the ball. And they'd be like, oh, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what? Do you think I would like defend that shit? Like, I'm like, I don't have any stake in Sony. He's like, they fucked up.
Exactly. Like, it is absolutely ridiculous. Everybody fucks up. You know what I'm saying? Like, to be in the business that we're both in, like providing content about games, we have to be critical.
Exactly.
Like we can't just take all the marketing messages and the hype that these companies are going to give because, you know, if I just gave the Nintendo party line, they'd be like, hey, like the Wii U, we expected to do bad and the Switch is perfect. And I'm like, no, y'all fucked up with the Wii U. You know what I'm saying?
He's like, no.
And while I think that the Switch is a good opportunity to do better, it's not guaranteed. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So, and there are significant issues that I'm worried about. Like this thing is about to launch, still have no idea about this online service that they're going to charge for.
Wait, you know? They're charging for the online service?
Yes.
How much?
So the rumor when they gave interview in Japan was between $17 and $25 a month. Sorry, year.
Okay.
It's like about half the price of, you know, of
okay, that's
Xbox
not bad.
Live. You know, but they still haven't really detailed it. And like, I'm like, this thing is about to launch. They still haven't really detailed about the virtual console, which is one of the strong points of buying a Nintendo console is you get access to this huge library.
Yeah.
They haven't announced anything about it, you know?
Yes. You see? So it wasn't totally crazy, people. Even Shareef is agreeing with me.
Yeah, no, I am so shocked and I'm really pissed because I'm like, this is one of your advantages. Like, if you're launching a console, have your shit done.
Yeah, have your shit together, man. Have your shit together.
Yeah, I mean, they still haven't announced if controllers like I have a Pro controller for the Wii U, which is basically like a version of an Xbox kind of controller, right? It has the dual analog sticks and LR, LR1, LR2 stuff on it. They still haven't announced if that will be compatible with the Switch. Because
you know it won't. You know it won't.
But if it's not, this will be the first console in 3 generations where the stuff is not backwards compatible, because all the Wii stuff work with the Wii U, you know, and the GameCube controllers work with the Wii.
With the Wii, yeah, you're right.
Know? So like this will be the first time that it doesn't do it, and I don't want to pay for the let's say this: I would not pay cash for the Switch Pro controller if my Wii U one works.
True.
Now, in my specific case, I took advantage of an offer at GameStop where they were really trying to, you know, incentivize pre-orders for the Switch. So they said if you trade in your Wii U and your 3DS, I got like something like $150 in bonus credit.
What?
So I traded in my Wii U and my 3DS, and I got the Switch paid for, Zelda paid for, and the Pro controller paid for. So I'm not paying for any of that at all.
Really?
You know? Yeah. But if I was, I would probably really hesitate on buying the Switch Pro controller because it's the most expensive controller out there. It's $70. So it's more than a DualShock. It's more than an Xbox One controller.
Wait, stop, Shareef.
And it's about twice the cost of the Wii U Pro controller, which is like
$70?
$70. It's an absurd price for a controller.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to get Brooklyn really quickly. Yo, they fucking bugging, B.
No. They are bugging. Now their justification is because, you know, it supports the amiibos and because they have this HD Rumble kind of technology. That's their justification. I haven't used it, but to me, even if that technology on paper means that you have to add in that, you should just eat that.
Yeah.
Or take the technology out, because I doubt enough people are going to use that to justify that. And just psychologically, it's hard to see that controller and say that it's worth $10 more than a DualShock or an Xbox One controller.
That's crazy.
So like, I think that and a lot of the other accessory prices are just absurd. And I'm not really going to buy into the other accessories, even though I might if they were more reasonably priced.
Yeah, they bugging.
But as I said before, I get the system. I have the 2 Joy-Cons so I can play multiplayer with my girlfriend, or if like somebody else comes, and I have the Pro Controller, because I do kind of prefer that if I'm not playing a game with like motion. Like with Zelda, I want to play it on a standard controller. You know, so yeah, there are some problems that I have with the Switch. It's definitely not a perfect console, and like fanboys, they just don't want to ever hear any negatives. Like they just want everything. Oh yeah, like there's never any problems with PlayStation. Oh, Microsoft is perfect, you know, with Xbox. You know, oh, like Nintendo never does any wrong. I'm like, yo, be critical of these companies. They do not care about you. Exactly. They care about making money. So hold them accountable. If they fuck up, call them out on it. If they're good, praise them. But if they fuck up, call them out on it. Don't be an apologist.
You're supposed to, as a fan, as someone who's spending your hard-earned money on these systems, like you're supposed to. You would think anyway. You would think the logical thing would be to critique because you're spending your money on it. But I don't know how the fanboy brain works, so I'm just befuddled by that whole thing. Now, one of the last things I want to ask you. It's not
logical. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's
all emotional.
One of the last things I want to ask you about is a game that you mentioned earlier, and a game that I saw I was excited about. I was like, man, I wish I had an Xbox to play it, and that was Recore. Mm-hmm. You said you didn't enjoy that at all?
I didn't, man. So like, that's another game I bought on PC through the Xbox Anywhere program. You know, it seemed like a cool little 3D platformer that like, you know, had like a female lead, which was awesome. And basically the idea behind the game is that you have all these cores of like different robots, and like you use like these robots to kind of help you navigate the world. So there's some that can dig under something. There's some that can break certain walls and that kind of stuff. I played it for about 2 hours. And you know, the writing was bad. The actual technical jumping and navigating was very sloppy. There were graphical inconsistencies that stood out a lot. Like there was a lot of glitching and clipping. Like the sounds they just weren't rewarding. And usually if I give a game an hour or like 2, I'm not going to force myself through it. Like I'm not a professional game reviewer, right? So I'm not on IGN and I have to finish this thing. So like, I'm like, hey, I got better things to do. Yeah. Now, I think it's a game that I'll come back to because the ideas behind it, I think, are cool. But I remember listening to some reviews and people said that the game seems like it ends like incomplete. Like it just kind of ends and the ending is so non-satisfying. And as a matter of fact, people have kind of glitched their way into other parts of the game that weren't in the single player.
Oh my gosh.
So like the thought is that they had this entire game and they had these additional kind of levels.
And they just cut them out.
Yes. You know, so like the game just sounds like an absolute mess. You know, but yeah, and it like it didn't look good. I mean, it just, there was nothing about it that wanted me that kept me playing.
Wow, that's horrible. That's really sad, man.
And the sad thing is, I mean, I went to several different sites to hear their review on it, and nobody had a positive review of this game.
Wow, that's,
you know. So I was like, oh man, like I guess, you know, I wasn't alone in the way I thought about it.
Yeah, I'm glad I dodged that bullet then, because I was like really excited about it. Dude, man, this is good talk.
Yeah, man.
Really good talk. Covered a lot. Man, okay, so I'm just going to say this, folks. You see, I wasn't completely bugging because there's a lot of points that Shareef agreed with me on.
No, I don't think you were bugging at all. And like as I said before, man, I don't expect everybody to be down with Nintendo. I don't expect everybody to buy a Switch. Everybody has different things that they want from gaming. I'm not a fanboy. I don't take it personally if somebody doesn't like Mario or Zelda or that kind of stuff, Yeah. So man, you provide great content. I think you're really balanced when you talk about things, in general. I mean, I had to check you on some of the interactive Switch stuff.
Yeah.
But
you see, folks, that's that Big Brother slap right there. Like,
but I will say that I think, especially in terms of the fighting game stuff, I think you have some of the most nuanced, balanced stuff. And like, definitely when I want to hear about something from that community, I always go to your feed and I listen to your show.
Thank you.
You always bring the dope stuff on that. So,
thank you so much.
Definitely continue to do that, man.
Thank you, man. You know what? It's like my whole thing with the FGC. I just want to bring truth and nothing but the truth, man. It makes everything better, makes everything so much more fun. Like, and that's what Neil deGrasse Tyson says, man. Just like, deal with reality on reality terms, and it's all everything is fun.
that is what he says. And if you can get him on your podcast or get him at a fighting game tournament,
dude, I would nerd out. Everybody would be mad, and I'd be the only one enjoying him talking about how all the things are like physically impossible, and talking about like plasma shooting, and be like, well,
I've been trying to get him on this. So I actually met him about a year and a half ago, and like I actually introduced him when he came to visit. Like,
I remember that, yeah, dude. What was that like?
Oh, it was incredible, man. He is like,
oh my gosh.
So the cool thing about him is he is so personable, but not in sort of the I'm smarter than everybody else way. Like he honestly was interested in how we thought about his stuff. So he would run ideas by us and re-explain stuff. He really made us feel like we were a part of his talk.
Right.
That's awesome. And I really appreciate that because I've met other people in the science kind of community and like that kind of stuff. And they're like, even if they don't say it, you feel that like, they're like, yo, don't ever talk to me about something because I'm smarter than you.
Do you know who I get that vibe from? And I like some of his talks, Lawrence Krauss.
Yeah. I get that vibe from him as well.
Yeah. I feel like when he's talking to people, I'm like, dude, like you don't have to be like that. Like it's fine. Like you could just chill. Like just chill out, man. Yeah. And I think like, and not to go off on another like nerd science tangent here, but that's what I love most about. I mean, obviously, the things that he's a hero of mine because he's a black man who is he's a scientist and he basically educates the world about science. And if people don't understand like why that's relevant to see a black man educating the world on science, like I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. That's like evident within itself, like especially in the last couple of years. And I feel like what I love about him is that he's always willing to check other scientists.
Yes.
And just being like, listen, like you can't deal with people like that. Like you cannot. And I loved when he checked like Richard Dawkins, and he was just like, you don't have to like if you call people stupid, they're not gonna listen to you. And he's just like, I educate people on science. Like this is what I do, and I talk to all different kinds of people. And certain people who definitely don't want to listen to me, and how I get them to listen to me is by listening to them and respecting them, and not just saying that, oh, you're an idiot just because you disagree with me on this one thing. I try to educate them through our conversation, and I was like, that is how science is supposed to work.
Absolutely, that's exactly how it's supposed to work, but not everybody does that.
Yeah.
And he's like very outspoken, and also when I talked to him, I got the sense that he's very aware of the fact that he is a black man in this majority white area of astrophysics. Like, he is very like, even though he obviously has a lot of fans that are diverse and like that kind of stuff.
Right.
He is not sort of this like colorblind, like just try hard and you can be like me. He's like, nah, we face differences.
Yeah, like straight up.
And like, I'm from New York and this is what I did, and like I realize everybody won't be as privileged to do this, that, and that. So when I talked to him, I was very pleasantly surprised that he was like very, very aware that he was a black man, of like how he's looked at. He said that everywhere he goes, he always gets some kind of questions that are like, basically weird. you're my black friend, can I ask you this question kind of thing, where he has to check people on that kind of stuff. So like I love that, because sometimes I get the sense when black people get very, very famous for like things that are traditionally, you know, white spaces, they tend to de-emphasize the fact that they're black.
Exactly.
You know, and like he really does not do that, and like I love that, you know.
Yeah, I love that guy, man. Like one of my personal heroes. Like seriously, that dude is amazing. Like he actually made me think about going back to school, and I was just like, I think I want to go back to school and be an astrophysicist. I was just like, it's just like I've always loved science, and science has always been my major, and like it's something that I just truly enjoyed, and I've always been I just always naturally got it. And I don't think like it never like clicked deeply in me. Like it was always a deep connection, but it was just like I can't explain it. It was just like a so much deeper connection when I saw him talking about it, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, no, he has the same gift that Carl Sagan had, in that he can explain really complicated stuff without sounding condescending.
Exactly.
And you know, and he also understands the context of where these experiments and scientific ideas come from. I mean, I thought that one of the great things about his Cosmos series was he was like, yo, this science came out, but people was mad racist and misogynist, and that's why we didn't get better stuff until later.
Yep.
You know? And like that's what's great about, you know, even current movies like Hidden Figures, is it's like, yo, if we wasn't so racist, we would have been so far ahead in the space race and getting people into space if like someone like Katherine Johnson, who's like a literal genius, didn't have to fight.
But America wanted to hire actual Nazis instead.
Exactly. Like
who weren't as smart. I'm just saying. That's like that's on some real historical talk.
Exactly. So like I think that him and others are really good at not saying that science is like this completely unbiased factual thing that you know only exists in terms of fact. It's like, no, science is by people, and people throughout history have been biased.
Exactly. You know? And it
like
has its baggages.
Yeah, and like that has held back humans.
But he explains it, and that's what I love about him. And I know we got to end soon. It's gonna be like he explains the fact that yes, there are those mistakes, but the mechanism of science actually has its own built-in way of correcting itself through experiments and through, you just can't say something. You just can't walk up to me and say something and like, okay, yeah, I believe you. It's like, okay, like you have to show me your experiments, and then those experiments have to be falsifiable, and then they have to be repeatable, and then we have to do all these things. And I know some of you may not understand what I'm saying, but like science is really awesome, and understanding the universe as it really is really, really awesome. And before we get out of here, Shareef Jackson, please let everyone know where they can find you, where they can find your tutoring stuff. Your science looks good, your math looks good, your STEM program information. Hit them with it.
Yeah, man. Everything's at ShareefJackson.com. SHAREEF Jackson.com. That'll link you to my tutoring stuff, which is Math Looks Good, also at mathlooksgood.com. My science blog, which is at sciencelooksgood.com, and my gaming YouTube series on diversity in video games, gaminglooksgood.com. There's also links to the two podcasts that I co-host. One is Operation Cubicle, which focuses on diversity within the corporate workplace. And the other is Spawn on Me, which is a weekly video game podcast where we talk about the week in news, and we also are proponents of issues of diversity and people of color in the industry. So definitely check all that stuff out.
Awesome. And before I give you guys like my stuff, I gotta say Operation Cubicle, the realest shit. As a person, if you're a young professional, especially like myself working in a startup, working in the tech space, as a person of color, it gives you life.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
Trust me, like when I started this job, so many people told me how eloquent I was, and if it wasn't for Operation Cubicle and listening to those episodes, trust me, it really, really gave me life, and I love it. And I thank you guys for doing it. As always, folks, I'm your humble host, Milton. And you can find me at Slovenly Gamer everywhere. You guys know this, man. It's the same thing. Slovenly Gamer on Twitter. As a matter of fact, go over to the Facebook page, like it. It's links to everything. If you're not a website person, if you are a website person, you can go over to slovenlygamer.com. I have a bunch of stuff over there too. You can find me everywhere on the social media, Instagram, everywhere at Slovenly Gamer. And remember, if you're listening on iTunes, please remember to like, share, rate, subscribe, spread the love, keep it positive, people, and we're out of here. Peace.
You